Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to present my thoughts and information regarding the most misunderstood, misinterpreted and misconceptualized word called God. I hope this video will give you a lot of information and clarity about God. If you're watching this video, watch it till the end with an open mind because there is a high chance of risk that you might misunderstand my concept if you skip anything anywhere in between. So first, if I ask you, do you believe in God, what do you say? Most of the replies would be in two options, either yes or no. Rarely the answer will be in other than these options. Hold on your answer anyway. If you know something about God, how will you tell that to me? Let's recall our past information and think about what we know as God. What do you get in your mind when you hear this word called God? Hold that image in your mind for a moment and read this. A buffalo thinks God is a huge buffalo, maybe with four horns. I like this statement very much, and this is said by Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev. We also think almost the same way, I suppose. Maybe with few more add-ons. We think God is a person with unbelievable capabilities, sitting up there spying us, who gives us hope, who gives reward for our good and bad deeds, isn't it? This is what we think. First of all, I want you to understand that what we know about God is always incomplete. All these things collectively don't even define 0.1% of what God is. We can clearly admit that we know nothing about God. Till this date, whatever we came to know about God and what we imagined as God has always been an assumption, estimation, and perception in our minds. It is always an incomplete conclusion. We all have some or the other kind of opinion on God. I request you to put all of that previous information aside and listen to me throughout. I would like to address few aspects regarding this word, God, in the present day scenario. In my case, when somebody asks me, do you believe in God? My reply is, what is God? That means I don't know what God is and how can I say whether I believe it or not. You tell me what God is and then I can tell you whether I like or dislike that idea. So I said I don't know what God is. It doesn't mean I didn't hear anything about God. I heard people preaching about God, but I don't want to accept their definitions. That's why I accept that I don't know anything about God. That means I don't want to believe in any incomplete conclusions. I just want to seek the truth. It's okay for me if I don't find the answer at all, and it's okay for me to be in this confusion than just believing something I don't know. Okay, I'll try to put this in simple way. Suppose if you have to ask me whether I read newspaper or not, you'll ask me that question only if you know what is reading and what is newspaper, isn't it? That means before asking me about reading newspaper, you must know whether I can read or not, and again to know whether I can read or not, you must know what is reading and what is newspaper. Only then you'll ask me that question, isn't it? But is it happening in the case of God? No, right? You don't know what God is, but you're asking me about my belief in it. So that means for me, there is no question of belief in God. For me, there is no question of theism and atheism. In my opinion, both of these categories of people are believing something they don't know. Even the person who is saying, I don't believe in God, is also just believing that God doesn't exist, but actually don't know the truth. See, I imagine something as God and I am saying God exists, and you imagine something as something else as God and saying God doesn't exist. Both of these arguments are invalid. They are valid only if your image and my image of God are the same one. If they are not same, both of these conclusions are incomplete. In case of God, what we did is all about choosing a side. If you believe in God, go this side. If you don't believe in God, go this side. That's all we did. But before choosing the side, we must have asked, what is God? But most of us didn't even get that question. Even if you got that question, you didn't try for the answer. Even if you tried for the answer, what we got is never incomplete, is never complete. Although it is incomplete, we just have chosen a side anyway. That's it. I found some interesting linkage between science and God. I will talk about that at the end, but we need to address something more important about theism and atheism because now anyway they exist in the world. So now let's assume we know God. In that case of belief in God, we categorize people into two classes. believers of God, believers of no God. Actually, this is insufficient. In both of these categories, there are two more categories of people based on their path of God. When I say path of God, I mean teachings of God. Whichever religion it may be, in every religion, there is definitely something for us to know how to be and how not to be. We'll talk about path of God briefly in the coming slides, wait for it. But for now, let's look at this classification first. In believers of God, there are people who are on the path of God, and there are people who are not on the path of God. And also in the non-believers of God, there are people who are on the path of God, and there are people who are not on the path of God. When I say there are people who believe in God, but don't, but not on the path of God, I am referring to the people who don't know what God taught us about life. Even if some people know it, most of them are unable to live it, and because knowing is different from understanding, and understanding is different from living. These people who say they believe in God but don't know what God is teaching us, this is the category where the actual problem arises. And in the same way, in non believers of God, there are people who are on the path of God knowingly or unknowingly, because the knowledge of right path is not restricted to religions, right? We can know about the right path of life through various sources. These sources can be people, can be books, can be nature, can be situations in life, and many things like this, even movies. So these people say, I don't believe in God, but I'm learning from life about how to make it joyful and conscious. They say, I don't want God, I just want to know how to live a complete life. That's it. So these people in this category are far more better than the category of people who say, I believe in God, but I don't want what is said by God. We talked about believers with no path, and we talked about non-believers with path. When we come to the people who believe in God and also on the path of God, this is the admirable one. The problem with them is they don't try to educate people, and anyway people won't listen to them. And if we come to this category of people who neither believe in God nor aspire to lead a meaningful life, in a way they are inert to knowledge and inert to change. It is an undesirable characteristic for any human being. So that's why I say path of God is mightier than belief in God. Every religion is trying to teach us something for life in the name of God. Those teachings altogether I say as path of God. So let's look at the path of God in a detailed way. Let's see what they want to teach us. Here I included a very small sample to explain what is path of God precisely. This is taken from one of the religious books called Bhagavad Gita. This part says these are the qualities which everybody must try to adopt. Let's read it and see what it says. Fearlessness, purity of mind, persistence in knowledge and yoga, charity and control of the external organ, sacrifice, scriptural study, austerity and rectitude, non-injury, truthfulness, absence of anger, renunciation, control of the internal organ, absence of vilification, kindness to the creatures, non-covetousness, gentleness, modesty, freedom from restlessness, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, purity, freedom from malice, absence of haughtiness. These are the qualities of one born destined to have the divine nature. The attributes of one destined to have the demonical nature are religious ostentation, pride, haughtiness, anger, as also rudeness and ignorance. It's not possible to cover all of them in a detailed way now. I'm planning to make videos on each of these qualities. I'll try to present the essence of each of these kind of teachings about why these teachings, why to adopt, what if I don't adopt, how to adopt, etc. So if you don't want to miss those videos, you know what to do. So above ones are the qualities we need to adopt in order to lead a conscious and joyful life. For example, fearlessness. Who doesn't want fearlessness? Everybody wants it, right? You believe in God or you don't believe in God, it doesn't matter. But if you are not admiring these qualities in other people, and if you're not aspiring to adopt these qualities into yourself, then you are the problem yourself. We need to first clear your problem and then talk about God. Below ones are said to be the demonical qualities. In the previous slides, we talked about the people who say God exists but don't follow the path of God. Now, Krishna is also saying the same thing, that religious ostentation is a demonical quality. They are the people who just pretend their worship. So, this is a small sample to introduce the path of God. Let's discuss it in a more detailed way in further videos, and that's why I say path of God is mightier than belief in God. The concept is not over yet. Now I'll talk about few interlinkages between science, philosophy, religion, knowledge, and God. There are a few concepts which, after knowing them, will not be able to say God doesn't exist. They will convince us to say God exists based on their definition of God. So first of all, you heard of Einstein's theory of relativity, right? E is equal to mc square. With this theory, he's saying that everything in this universe is a form of only one thing. We have come across this equation many times but never understood properly. I'll try to put it in simple terms. Let's focus. Imagine if you are lighting a paper. When it gets burnt completely, you are left with ash, isn't it? That means some amount of mass of paper is converted into energy in the form of fire, and some amount of mass of the paper is remained as ash, isn't it? Now just imagine if we can convert that ash also into energy, then how much will be that energy? Let's assume we have collected 1 gram of ash by burning few papers, and if we can convert that 1 gram of any mass into pure energy, then that energy will be equal to the energy of a nuclear explosion. Not only ash, consider anything which has 1 gram of mass, like paper clip or a pen cap, or 1 gram of sugar or 1 gram of salt, etc. If you can convert that 1 gram of mass into energy completely, it will be equal to an explosion. Then imagine how much amount of energy is hidden inside the objects around us. If 1 gram of salt can be in a nuclear explosion, then what would be our body equal to? Then this is very difficult to imagine, but that's what is said by Einstein, and it makes a lot of sense. This is the layman's expression of E is equal to mc square. That means now everything we are looking at definitely have some mass, and mass is the form of energy, and that means everything around us is a form of energy. But the more interesting part is we are unable to define energy completely. Yes, we don't have a complete definition for energy. So now there is a linkage between God and energy. Science is saying that everything is a form of energy, and we don't know energy completely. On the other side, Vedas and mythology is saying that everything is a form of God, and we don't know God completely. Did you find any similarity? Yes, I think they might be talking about the same thing by giving their own names to it. That's what is said by Einstein. Science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. The same thing is proposed by Adi Shankaracharya in his philosophy of Advaitam, which means everything in this universe is one. So everything is one, but the only problem is that we give many names and forms to it. That's it. That was one of the aspects of God, that everything is one. Let's go into the next concept. God is a state of infinite bliss. In our life, all we want is happiness and joy, isn't it? There are many factors like love, fame, money, knowledge, etc. But behind all those factors, happiness is a sole motive for our life, isn't it? And in happiness, there are again two components, joy and pleasure. Pleasure is based on external factors, based on our action and reaction. We need something else to experience pleasure in us, like watching a movie, going on a ride, or spending time with our friends, etc. Whereas Joy is an internal aspect, and to be joyful, we need nothing. We can be joyful despite of what's happening around us. It is said that if there is a person who is able to enhance his own joy into unlimited and infinite bliss without any external factor or any medium, then he is said to be in a state of God. He himself has acquired the state of God. He doesn't need any God anymore. So you can be your God if you can access your state of mind such that it is always in a state of infinite bliss, irrespective of what's happening around you. Then you are God yourself. That's one concept. And one more concept which prohibits us to say God doesn't exist is this: God is a source of wisdom. So actually, we all have a basic sense of humanity about what is right and what is not right. But still, in most of the situations, we just ignore our sense and do what we think is favorable for us. Why we behave like that is a different issue, but we have that basic sense in all of us, which is enabling us to differentiate between right and wrong, isn't it? That sense is given by that one energy, that one consciousness, that one God, and that one Almighty. That one is a source of knowledge and wisdom. That's what it says. We discussed about path of God, right? And knowledge is not just confined to religion. Knowledge is everywhere. Not only the knowledge of life, any kind of learning, invention, or philosophy, etc. They arise through observation of life. We learn by observing nature, existence, and life. We usually see writers writing life lessons by just describing nature, isn't it? Like, what does sun, moon, stars teach us? What does a lion teach us? What does a candle teach us? What does a butterfly teach us? Etc. We learn like this by observing nature and comparing it with our life. A simple leaf can also teach you something if you are ready to learn. So this concept says Almighty is the only teacher and it is everywhere. So that's it. I'm done. I advise you to watch over the video once again to get it completely because it's complex and there is a high chance of misunderstanding, and I usually don't ask to share my videos, but now I'm asking you to share this video because this is something which everybody wants to know, and I've put all the information I have at one place. So if you find it meaningful, please share it across your friends and family as far as you can and as long as you can. This topic is suggested by one of our subscribers. Thanks for suggestion. Keep suggesting me, keep advising me, and let me know my mistakes. Comment how you felt, and thank you.